Welcome to Comic Books and Graphic Novels' first ever literary hangout. I'm delighted if you're tuning in. I'm delighted if you're tuning in later and watching the video record. And I'm delighted if you're thinking of joining us because we're opening this hangout up. We are posting on the homepage of Comic Books and Graphic Novels a link that should allow you to join the hangout. And today we're going to be discussing Kelly Sue DeConnick, Emma Rios's and Jordi Belair's Pretty Deadly, and then we will turn to Brian K. Vaughan's and Fiona Staples' Saga. We'll only spend a little bit of time on that. So before we get going in the discussion proper, I want to introduce or have introduced the various class members who've joined us. So first up, and forgive me if I mess up any names here, is Alex Griffin. Alex, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Alex, would you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What time it is? Go ahead.
It's noon where I am. I'm on the East Coast in New Hampshire, United States. I've been reading comic books. Oh, go ahead.
How long have you been reading comic books?
Oh boy, probably since I was 5 years old. I think when I started, I didn't really get into it till I was around 10 years old. Is when I started really collecting.
And how long do you have a large comic book collection? Are you an occasional reader? Tell me a little bit about what you read.
Oh, I'm not a huge collector. I have, a couple of long boxes filled, but I read kind of anything that catches my interest. Not too much of the big two recently. One of my favorite recent reads has been Atomic Robo, actually. I love like Hellboy. Of course, Saga's been great. Been really getting more into sort of Image, IDW, indie scene lately. I also like just discovered European comics with what was it called? Doll something, I think. I
don't
remember.
know. That's great. So why did you take the MOOC?
One more time?
Why did you take the MOOC? What inspired you to take the online course?
I had seen Coursera around for a little while. This popped up on my recommended sort of courses to take, so I figured, hey, yeah, I'll go for it.
For another student, Dean. Dean, are you there? I'm not sure, Dean.
Yes. Hi.
Dean.
Yes, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you and see you. So, Dean, where are you?
Hi.
Oh, we may be losing you. It's a tentative.
I am in South Africa, Pretoria.
Great.
It might be the connection. My apologies.
That's all right.
I am in South Africa. Yeah.
And what got you interested in taking this MOOC? What's your history with comics? A little bit lag.
Well, I've done I'm a graphic designer by profession. I just graduated. I've been a fan of graphic novels and comic books my whole life, actually. It's been a journey for me, but I've done my own comic books during my studies, so I've got experience in it. So
that's wonderful. And what kind of comics do you like, Dean?
Just to improve that. At this stage, I am enjoying Hellblazer. It's closer to home, I should say.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, no, that's a complex comic book. Good.
Shucks, what can I say? It's a lot of. I enjoy all kinds. Yeah. I enjoy what at the moment. My fiance has got what is Sandman. There's 2 issues, 2 collections, and a couple of his novels. So we've got a bit of interesting collection of esotericism, if you will, fantasy.
Excellent. Okay, let's turn to Gargi. Are you out there?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can see you. Hello.
Hi.
Where are you coming from?
I'm from India.
Wow, where in India?
The north, Chandigarh.
Wow. Well, welcome to America. It's good to see you. So, what brought you to the comic book MOOC?
Well, I'm an aspiring graphic designer, even though I'm studying engineering right now. But I'm really interested in graphic designing, so I design on my own. And recently, my best friend got me into comic books. She's actually American. She's read them all her life. So it's very. After we started watching Avengers and all those movies, she really started getting me into it. She roped me into it.
Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful. So we have two graphic designers, a comic book reader, and Nazia. Are you there? I see your lips moving.
Nazia, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Excellent.
Okay,
So,
right.
Nazia, where are you?
I am also, like Gargi, I'm also in India. So I'm in Hyderabad, that's in the south.
Right.
So, yeah.
And what's your interest in comic books?
Well, I teach literature. I teach women's literature in particular, and there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening on the comic book scene in India. And I was basically brought up to believe that comic books are fun and it's a good way to kill time, but it's not serious literature. And so I realized, looking at some of the content that's coming out from Indian comic books and how political they are and how well they engage with so many social and historical and yeah, I mean any kind of political content, I realized that this is something that we cannot possibly ignore. So I wanted to learn more about comic books, and this seemed like a fun opportunity. So that's why I'm here.
Excellent. That's great. Let me ask you a question. Are women producing or writing or drawing comic books in India now? Or is it mostly...
Yes, they are.
They are. That's wonderful.
Well, it is dominated by men, but you see more and more women coming out and sort of writing all kinds of really, really radical stuff. So I did in the email that I sent to you, I mentioned two of them. One is the Bhimayana, which touches upon crucial questions of caste, for example, which is a huge problem in India. And so they actually had these extremely marginalized, oppressed communities produce the artwork for it. So there's this amazing body of work that's coming out and which I think merits serious academic attention, given the fact that we've completely ignored comic books till now.
That is wonderful. Wonderful to hear. And of course, I agree completely. I agree. Part of what I want to talk about today is with Pretty Deadly is women's creation of comic books and the importance of a kind of political edge to what is usually termed genre fiction, and because it's genre fiction, is taken to be fairly limited. So, so good for you. I'm very impressed that you're teaching comics, that you're alive to the way it's political. Bravo. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. So, right now, these are our four main players. Other people may join us, and just like in a class, if a student walks in late, that's absolutely fine. We'll integrate them into the discussion. We may pause to find out who they are because this is pretty fantastic. We really have an international classroom here. It's very exciting. So what I want to do is, first I'll ask you, have you guys all read Pretty Deadly start to finish, or just the excerpt that I posted? Nazia, have you read the whole thing?
Just the excerpts.
Excerpt. And Gargi, I think you're muted now. Have you read all of Pretty Deadly, or just the little excerpt that I posted?
Are you talking about week 5?
This one, Pretty Deadly. I guess the cover looks like this. Did you you just read the excerpt? Yes.
No, I did not, because I did not have time to see the entire videos. I'm on week 3 right now.
Okay, you're catching up. That's fine. Dean, were you able to read the whole? Do you own the whole comic, or did you just read the excerpt?
No, unfortunately, I only read the excerpt. I'm definitely going to read the entire comic book. It was definitely an interesting story. Yeah, but no, I haven't read it yet completely.
Do you all have? Alex and I were talking, so I know he's read the whole comic last night. Do you all have access to the excerpt right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So let's get into this. So this is. I'd like to spend. Let me just say. I'd like to spend about 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes, talking about the excerpt. Then I'll pull together our ideas. I will circle the main ideas, and then I will synthesize them for you. And then I want to turn to the first page or two of Saga. And I have a little idea I want to embark on with Saga. But let's just talk about Pretty Deadly. So I put a PDF online, and that's the excerpt. And it starts at a good place. It starts with a bunch of townspeople milling around, and then this little girl, this strange little girl, her name turns out to be Sissy. She seems to be wearing a kind of bird costume. She says, "Ready?" So that's as good a start as any. And then next to her, this gentleman, he has a mask, he's blind. He says, "I." And then it embarks. So I think the best thing to do here is to just start us out. And Nazia, your screen is on. Would you read for us? Would you read? Let's just start with this first page. I'll be the old man.
Okay.
You be the young woman. And let's see if we can make this work. And
Okay, sounds good.
I know that many people out there don't like my voices, but I can't resist reading. So I'm going to put on now, as I get older, I have my magic glasses. And Nazia, you start us out. We're on the first page of this interlude, and we're just going to start off reading this first page. So hit it.
Right. Ready?
Aye.
Friends, we two poor piteous strangers stand humble before you, asking for your ears.
Though we be sore unsightly, our tale starts with a great beauty and a great injustice done her.
Foxy, if you would.
And then the little girl at the bottom of the page. All right, folks. Well done, Nazia. I have to say, you're clearly a teacher. What stands out here? Look at this page, and what stands out? What would you circle? What's interesting about this page? Anybody, jump in. This is a free-for-all. What stands out?
Well, for me, maybe because, like I said, I've been a literature professor for a literature student for so long. It's always I think I'm sort of, my eyes have been open to the visuality of comics, and so it's the visual that always strikes me. So what I actually want to underline are all the inked lines in this, which are so stark and so fluid.
Inked lines are stark and fluid. Good. Alex, I'm calling on you. What stood out?
I'm trying to get to the excerpt right now, actually. So why don't you come back to me in just a minute?
I want to ask you. You're the only person besides me in this virtual room who's read the whole comic. What strikes you about the comic overall? What would you tell somebody who hasn't read it that stands out about the comic?
Well, more than anything else about the comic is definitely the narrative structure, because it does not follow your classic sort of 3-act story. I think it even says this right on the back of the trade paperback. It goes for sort of a more almost organic, older style, what you might expect to read in like an old a fairy tale or myth or something like that.
That's interesting. Help me understand, what is the 3-act structure and why is it so popular?
Well, the three-act structure is pretty much used in every storytelling medium that I can think of today. You know, it has obviously the beginning, the middle, and the climax. Um, that have, you know, very specific rules to you. Like, I think one general rule of thumb is introduce every player, every character that you're going to have in the first act is like one of those. It's sort of the introduction. The middle is when things are sort of explaining exposition. The climax, you know, the conclusion as it is to the story.
Excellent.
And doesn't really, it really doesn't follow that. You're sort of thrown into the middle,
Yeah.
as it were, and then it's sort of with absolutely no explanation, no exposition, which was actually kind of refreshing once I finished the entire thing. It threw me off so much at the beginning that I started hating it for the first two issues because it was just I felt it was such a mess and I had no idea what was happening. By the end of it, it actually all made sense. So sort of it didn't really it really backtracked itself as if you were actually thrown into that situation or just like sort of magically teleported there, you would things are explained to you as the reader the same way it would be explained to you if you were really there, or the sequence of how you would figure things out, I think.
Excellent, excellent. So what I'm taking from you is that it foils a traditional commercial structure of beginning, middle, and end, and that foiling is so frustrating initially that it seems like a mess. That was the word you used. Excellent. Yeah. So, Dean, I'm coming to you now. Looking at this page, I hope you got it up on your screen. What strikes you?
Yeah.
What stands out?
For me, it was the wonderful grid at the bottom of the bottom page that emphasizes a comic strip within a comic strip. It was actually quite a unique. Well, it's not unique. It has been done before, but how those individual frames then once again integrated to the rest of the pages, which was experimental in a sense, putting all the frames in this layout, which. What I can see.
You're freezing up, but you're making a great point. So I want you to. I hope you be okay. We didn't. I don't think. Did we lose Dean? I'm checking over mission control over here. Mission control. Corey's in charge. All right. Dean is kind of frozen up. Nazia popped up on my screen. Nazia, what do you make of this comic within a comic that Dean pointed out?
I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, the entire excerpt seemed to me to evoke a lot of the mythic storytelling that Alex was talking about. And so it even, to my untrained eyes, some of this may even, evoke from Native American, art. That's what but I did find the grid within the grid absolutely fascinating, and the storytelling that incorporates within the story. So the metafiction element, but I really don't know what to make of that beyond the scattered comments that I've just given you.
Well, let me play with you a little bit. Looking at this bottom third of the page, reassociate a little bit with me. What is Emma Rios doing to make that comic book? It looks like a grid. But what else does it look like? What other images does it evoke? And what is interesting to your eyes about it? Just play with it.
Well, there seems to be something cannibalistic happening there, and your eyes go. Maybe it's something to do with vantage point, but your eyes go straight to that second panel in the third tier. In the third tier, at least my eyes go straight to that. And so that seems very fascinating. Then that recurring image of the girl in the first panel in the first tier, the girl with the long hair. There's something in this. I'm not sure if this is a theme which runs throughout the comic book, but there's something about hair, women and hair. On the next page, you have flames that evoke and that sort of enmesh themselves with all the hair that's there. So, so the woman, what was her name? Sissy. Yeah, she, and as well as the girl who's called Beauty. I assume that's the one in the first panel in the first year. There's something to do with hair and something that almost evokes Medusa and myths associated with women and hair that comes out in this entire excerpt for me. And so those were the two panels in this comic within a comic, or this grid within a grid, that that interested me the most. The one with the cannibalistic element, and the other one is the girl with the hair.
Excellent, excellent. Let's go to Gargi. Gargi, are you there?
I am.
Excellent.
But the excerpt is not loading.
The excerpt is not loading.
No.
All right. I'm going to cut back to Dean for a second, and then see if you give me a little thumbs up in your little window when you've loaded that. Okay. Back to Dean. Dean, you brought up this comic without a comic.
Hi.
Hi. You brought up this comic without a comic. We've built on that a little bit. That two of the images give beauty and a sense of cannibalism, or even it's like self-cannibalism. It's horrible. It's self-hurting, but she seems to be eating her own wrist.
Self-mutilation.
Self-mutilation. But talk to me more about this comic within a comic.
I mean, I'm going to now talk in context of the entire excerpt. I mean, I know we have to focus on the one page, but if you carry on reading, they're telling three stories all in one go. They are showing the audience, the storytellers, the small illustrations that they now put up in the little grid and that flag, and then retelling.
So, Dean, you mentioned count them off. Count them off to us. How many different stories are there being told? And list them off. So,
here's the presentation of the comic book strip, if you will, the story they're going to tell. That's the audience, the storytellers, the narratives, narrators, if you will. Then, once again, it's the story that they are telling. That's the other element, which.
Story they're telling. The South African connection is tough. We've got the presentation. We've got the story they're telling. Dean is kind of broken off here.
Yeah.
Keep going. Can you hear us?
And yes, I can hear you. And you've got the comic book itself representing all three of these things in once, showing the entirety in one, putting in the whole aspect of that all-in-one aspect. So you try and see it in the 4 points of views, if you will. So aside from the wonderful layout.
Excellent. So we've got one. So I'm pulling together some points we've made. One, this does not follow a basic narrative structure of beginning, middle, and end. And part of what makes it complicated or messy is that it pulls us in to multiple layers of storytelling at the same time. As those stories are unfolding, we see that it's a story of storytelling, literally a presentation. And to me, this page here, this looks like it's a flag, but it's wonderfully like a sail, too. It's like we're embarking on this journey. Second, it's a story they're telling of identity. So it's a story within a story. And then it's a story about comic books itself, because it's operating as we turn the pages. It begins to focus in on individual panels. Now, Nazia led us into those panels, and what we discover in those panels, I'm putting it right up here, is that it's a story kind of self-destruction, of beauty eating her own, killing herself. So I want to move us forward to this last page, because time does move right along. So if you can get up on this last page, I want us to read that. And I want to turn to Gargi. Gargi, have you been able to get it up yet?
No, I'm very sorry. It's very embarrassing, but it's not loading.
I'm going to call on you later to kind of try and help us synthesize some ideas. But
Yeah, alright.
let's go back to Alex. Could I assign you? Have you
Yeah.
gotten the page?
Yeah, I got it up.
Assign you. You're going to read the narrator. So you read the boxes.
All right.
I'm back to you. I want you to read Sissy's lines.
Is
And
that me?
Yeah, you're going to
Okay,
read
all right. Yeah.
Sissy's
there was-
lines, and Alex is going to read the boxes up here. You know, reading out loud is one of the true joys of life. If you have kids, you probably already figured that out. But the reason I make funny voices is because, for me, it has to do with imaginatively getting into the page. It may be annoying, fair enough, but it has to do with embodying the page and making it my own. And I encourage everyone to get in. The pages are very thin. It's hard to get inside them. There's not a lot of room in there. But literally, you have to embody them. You have to make them your own. Okay, cats, hit it. Alex,
So, just one question. Would you like me to sort of read it as I hear it in my head when I read it?
do it. If you hear it in your head a certain way and you're willing to share that with us, go.
All right, all right. The sun set and the moon rose, one end and one beginning. He freed Beauty's soul, but he kept the child whole, and death named his baby girl Ginny.
He raised her a raper of vengeance, a hunter of men who have sinned. If you done been wronged, say her name, sing this song. Sound the bell's knell that calls her from hell. Ginny rides for you on the wind, my child. Death rides on the wind.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Alex, that was great. You took me right to a Sergio Leone movie. It was great. It was great. And Nazia, you have a beautiful, beautiful voice. So the contrast there, to me, was theater. So looking at this page, what stands out? What's interesting about this page? Anybody?
Actually, I just noticed something.
Yeah.
How Sissy is sort of looming over this the child, right here, dead center in the page that sort of jumps out to you. That's actually, now that I'm seeing this, that's absolutely foreshadowing. I won't say what, but because that would be a spoiler. But that's actually some pretty obvious foreshadowing now that I've read the entire thing here.
So, though, because not everyone has.
Mm.
In this page, what was the layout of Sissy loom for that girl? She's the same girl that was gasping in the beginning. Now she's crying. What's going on there? Alex, what do you think that does for this page?
Well, it just shows how much the story is obviously affecting the audience in the story. I mean, this little girl is obviously terrified from this story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that means that one thing is it means that Sissy's really selling it.
Yeah, just as you were selling it, Sissy's really selling it. So more on this page. Keep going. Dean, go ahead. What do you see here?
Well, what stood out for me, aside from now, as Alex pointed out, is how death is represented, also not by death, but as well. Vulture, my apologies. Going for this child. I mean, maybe that connects to the child in the sense that how could that happen for a little infant that way? I mean, it's in that specific color as well. And in putting it in that specific color, it actually invokes an emotion of not possible rage, a bit of that red and orange but that's probably just the intent, possibly. But
yeah, there's a lot of
stood out for me.
Dean, keep working on that a little more, because we've got the baby, we've got Death holding the baby, which is, yeah, it is. There's something horrible about that, the freshness and newness of the baby. Then we've got this vulture coming in. What kind of connections are being built here between those images? I mean, I guess I'm leading here, but it's weird that Sissy ultimately is wearing this vulture's headdress. That connects with Nadia's point about hair, and it connects with this image, the vulture taking the baby. It all ties together with her, and then as Alex pointed out, she looms over this innocent who's drastically affected by the story.
Is it possible I could just jump in real quick? There's something I just noticed.
Yeah.
Just what Dean was saying here with how the with Death and the baby and the vulture are colored, just from a structural point of view, I just realized that almost works as I guess you call it the panelist panel. I can't remember exactly what the term was, but you know, it has just the way it leads the eye up top in the left-hand corner. I mean, this is multiple colors. Then you see this is kind of monotone,
Right.
almost like a separate panel, but without lines, and then it leads down back into the colors with Sissy looming over the innocent.
This brings up a good point. Alex, how many tiers and how many rows, or how many tiers and how many columns do you think there are in this page?
I'd say probably at least 5.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think you're exactly right. And then at least what? 1, 2, 3. So it's 3 by 5. So your point, and I'm sorry to keep pestering you here, your point is that this is a dense page. Most of the pages we've been reading are 3 by 3. So
Yeah.
this is 3 by 5. It's 15 panels. And it's interesting, too.
May I? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I just have a couple of points that may help us perhaps weave into sort of a single thread or a single complex thread some of these points that we've been raising. It seems to me that this page exemplifies a collapsing of time. When you look at all the faces that are superimposed, are almost superimposed on each other, whether it's the buzzard or vulture or whatever that is, and Sissy grown up and as a child, that seems to me to be almost a collapsing of time, like a simultaneity or a disruption of linear time. And the other thing that I observed was that if you look at the smaller panels, right, the ones that say at rest and the ones that also sort of are there in the earlier pages, they look almost like tarot cards to me.
Ew.
And so, yeah, and so I'm wondering if there's a multi-genre thing of visual representation happening here as well, which would explain the several, the multiple levels of storytelling that Dean was talking about. So those two things I thought were very interesting, the collapsing of time and the multi-genre visuality of this page.
I just got the page, and there's this really interesting thing about the at rest and those the things you call the tarot cards. There's always a sort of wooden cane with them. So it's sort of like somebody is pointing them out while,
Right.
storytelling, just how a class teacher would do it, probably. Something of that sort.
Excellent, excellent. So can we bring in, we're pulling this together wonderfully. All of you are doing great. How do we see this as a comic in some way about gender? We've got how this is about storytelling, but how is it about gender? Remember, this is made by 3 women. The writer is a woman, the artist is a woman, and the colorist is a woman. And I can't think of a super popular comic by 3 women other than this. I can think of comics by 1 woman, but not by a collaborative force and not put out by a mainstream publisher. So to me, it takes a very masculine genre, or Western. the American Western. And it's 3 women playing with it. So we've got this complicated sense of storytelling, paneling, levels of story that intersect with levels of time. This is perfect because tarot cards are ways we read the past and the future from the present. So it has to do with time. But how does this have to do with gender? Anybody, jump in.
It's very strong in case of gender because all these women are sort of drawn very, what do you say, as you said before, stark and lined, very properly and beautifully colored. And, you know, all of the women are colored and dark, and you can make them out in the panels or, well, not the panels, in the page.
Good, great, great. More. Alex, what are you thinking?
Well, there is a very, very definite way she was in difference between the way women and men are drawn. Especially if you look on the second page there with the panel of the covetous men. All the men are drawn. Honestly, the best way I can do it is kind of aggressive and wrinkled almost. It is an interesting feature I'm seeing with all of them.
Well, this guy here is pretty aggressive and wrinkly, and yeah.
For some reason, there's more detail to the men, and the only thing I can think of is just to give them a little bit more character for whatever specific reason. Compared to, I mean, like Sissy, her character in my mind is more embodied by what she's wearing than necessarily what she looks like. Compared to the men, other than the old man who has the blindfold, none of them really have anything. It's just another way to characterize them, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nadia, go ahead.
I was going to say that once again, I mean, I'm absolutely struck by the page where there's so much fire, right? And the hair sort of intermingles with the fire. It seems to me as if Sissy's agency is almost fiery in the way that it connects to beauty. And I'm really not sure. I'm not sure. I think I need to think a little more about the role that beauty plays here. But if you look at the women by themselves, I'm struck by the way the hair and the fire intermingle. And I was thinking, I mean, I'm trying to draw this into some kind of thesis for this excerpt. And I'm thinking that this excerpt, so I'm not thinking of each individual page, but this excerpt seems to be a very powerful, gendered storytelling and mythic narrative about women as social commodities. I don't know if that's just a mouthful or if it actually makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I just noticed that Dee in Florida joined us. Dee, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. And thank you for joining us.
It's been hard just trying to get connected, so I wasn't sure if you could see me or hear me. But I was listening before, but then my computer went down, and it's been a little hard just trying to get on.
I am so glad you made it. Technology, we have discovered by doing this course, is very alluring, but also very frustrating. So I'm glad now.
But yes, I have been listening to you guys, so it really is informational. So I was getting something out of it, even though I couldn't get on.
Dee, were you able to read the excerpts that I posted?
Yes, I did read them, but now I'm trying to get to the page where I can pull it back up because I'm on a different computer. So I was trying to pull that one page back up again.
Well, do you have any thoughts about when you read them? Do you have any? You've been listening to this conversation, and maybe without looking at those panels, you can help us further what Nadia was doing, which is pulling things together. Can you help us with that a little bit?
Well, the only thing that I got out of it, reading it, was that it seemed like it was empowering the female character that the
Yes.
devil was in love with. So to me, it seemed like it was meant more, making her seem like the center of attention, and that she would be the main focus in the comic coming.
Talk to me about that empowerment, because I think Nadia, in reading that, brought us to the fact that beauty is kind of a commodity. She's traded, she's sealed away. Death ultimately has his way with her, and they have a child. What is the empowering element in this page?
To me, the empowering element was the fact that of what had happened previously. I think that was like forefront in her mind, in the child's mind, so that would be what would be propelling her forward to do whatever it is that she would do.
Excellent, excellent. Nadia, I saw you nodding your head when Dee said empowerment. What do you see?
I think I agree with that, because it restores the female subject to history. So it tells the story, or at least Sissy tries to tell the story from Beauty's perspective. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure how successful she is, but there's certainly it's certainly a very powerful narration.
Right.
Dee, was that you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What were you saying?
Yeah, I was saying, yeah, I agree. I agree with Nadia. That's the way I see it also.
So I want to turn to the other page I posted, which was a pretty racy page. But,
yes, it was.
and I apologize for that. But you can't have a little fun with comics. When are you going to have fun? Before I do, though, can someone sum up concisely what this little excerpt has taught us? Someone just go for broke. We've circled all the details. We've talked about the details. Synthesize it.
Sigmund Freud might be correct.
Might be.
What is that supposed to mean?
What is that supposed to mean, Dean?
Is my microphone
I don't
working?
know. I don't know. It was quite. That definitely stood out for me. I don't know why. It just did.
Alex, you've been trying to get something in.
Can you hear me, or is my microphone not working?
We can hear you.
Okay. Well, honestly, like with Nazia's explanation of that thing almost from Beauty's perspective, were you talking about the sort of banner specifically, and Sissy was saying that?
Did you say the banner?
I think Alex is asking you, Nadia, how does the storytelling work?
How does the story what?
How does the storytelling work to create any sense of agency?
I was asking is she said that the Sissy telling the story like it was almost from the Beauty's perspective. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, I was.
I'll be honest with you. I don't see it. It feels much more like just just a narrative, not necessarily with any particular perspective. It's just I'm just because it sort of revolves around her. I think is a little bit more the case here. It feels like an old myth. It really does. And
yes, but it's an old myth that you said revolves around her, and that's the point. I did make that. I was slightly tentative when I made that statement because there are many myths about women that actually have nothing to do with the women themselves. They're often feminization of attributes that we, for example, associate with nature. So many myths are used as metaphysical, are used as explanations of metaphysical phenomena. I don't know if that's the case here. I haven't read the whole comic book, but it seemed to me initially that it puts this particular narrative, and particularly Sissy's pain and the anger with which she represents beauty, and her and what she went through, seems to me to create to sort of set up a narrative from the gendered perspective of beauty and Sissy, because Sissy is also part of the story.
Okay.
So, but yes, but I am tentative about it, because I'm not sure I'm convinced about myths as always necessarily being always empowering for women. I'm not sure if that made any sense.
I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I do think, though, that myths have a place to make you think. You know, it may not be describing your particular action, but I do think that it gives you something to think about, you know, and to either do something different or go in a different direction. So I think the myths really help you.
How? How do they help you?
How do they help you? Because they give you a guidance. You know, it's like either this will happen if you do this, or don't do this because, you know, you don't want this to happen. So, you know, like with this one, you know, and with the hair, you know, and the tower, for me, that reminded me of, what is that, like Rumpelstiltskin or one of those, you know? So it puts that, okay, it's beauty, you know, and I want, because of the hair, you know, and I want to keep her in this castle and keep her just for myself. So it lets you know that, you know, even though that was written, you know, years and years ago, it's like now, you know, you can't do things like that. You can't have a view of where it's just for you. You know, you have to use common sense and say, okay, well, you know, how is this going to benefit me and the world? I have to share it.
You have to share it. Excellent. So what I'm taking from this is that Pretty Deadly, it operates like a commercial genre, a Western. But the minute we open it, we're involved in a very messy story that has multiple layers and that moves through narrative lines and temporal lines. And it asks us to sort through. But it also guides us. It guides us because it shows us a comic page, which is indeed 5x3 gridded out layers, but it shows us how to get through that complexity. And it does so by challenging us. And in doing that, it invites us to participate in the story itself. So what I'm saying is, it teaches us how to read through a messy world. It teaches us, it invites us, it pulls us along, and it gives us a female character who, in my view, is doing that herself. She is telling the story. She's not in charge of it. I think this came out of Dee's point at the end there. She's not in charge of the story. She's following along. But as she does follow along, she begins to loom larger and larger. So the act of reading and of telling becomes an act, in my view, of self-expression. Even though she's not really designing the story is much larger than her. This doubles over, if you're following me, to the making of the comic book itself. Because just as this is a little story told by a girl, this is a comic made by women. So I want to turn to that racy page.
One thing I just noticed in here, in the Deadly comic, there's that comic within that comic thing, that tiny comic on the 4th page. It's 4x3, but the page is 5x3.
So what do you make of that?
I'm not sure, because I mean, I just noticed that, and it was surprising because we're discussing that the page is 5x3. Then why would the writer put, sorry, the comic artist put 4 into 3 into the page.
So,
Can I suggest something?
yes, please, because I got nothing on this.
Okay. Yeah, I think it has to do with Gargi. I think you haven't gotten to week 5 yet, but I think it may, this is just a speculation, may have something to do with decompression that Professor Kuskin talks about in one of the week 5 videos, which is when you want to run through, or when you want to create a sense of momentum in the plot where things are happening very, very fast, you actually slow down the visual storytelling. So you insert more panels to do that. Maybe that's what's happening here. I don't know, but that's just a theory.
Others? Yeah, the only thing I have is basically along those lines that, in fact, this little microcosm, this little guide is simpler than the reality layer of the story itself. That this is more dense even than the story they're telling, so that their guide for reading can only get us partially there. We need to deal with the more complex reality. I don't know if that's the most satisfying answer, but it's the best I can do. But I want to move us. to this this very sexy page between Johnny Ginger and Lil prostitute. And I'm going to read this because, in fact, my friends, we are running very low on time. But I want us to look at this because I think this is a place where we can kind of conclude our analysis of Pretty Deadly. So this is Johnny has been shot by one of Devil's Death's emissaries, and he's retreated to the prostitute's company. She's taken care of. So the page begins. It's this page, and the page begins, "Done what? How come you stole the binder? How come you give it to the girl?" "Didn't give it to her. I let her take it." "Don't know why." "Forever making mischief you are. You my mother now?" "Boy, if I'm your mother, you're a right lot sicker than we thought." And it ends with this. So, what stands out about this page? What can we do with this page? We've been talking about storytelling. We've been talking about time. We've been talking about women's agency, and we've been talking about the agency latent in storytelling. So what can you do with this?
I'm not sure.
What strikes you about it? What's your first reaction?
Let's
One
stick to
thing
my
that
previous statement. Sigmund Freud might be correct.
Yeah, Sigmund Freud, because it's, sexy.
One thing I want to say here with the mention of women's agency is, well, look at this. He's lying down, doing nothing helpless. She's literally on top of him, and she's the one actually, cleaning the wound and I guess really doing things and having agency in this page. So.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's a sense of
What I
intimacy.
found, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Dean, take a shot at it, and then we'll go to D.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
I think it's a sense of intimacy, but
Did I lose you?
No, D, go ahead.
Oh,
Dean's connection is poor, so
oh,
go ahead.
okay. Well, the only thing that stands out to me in here is it looks like the female person is dominating here. She's taking control of the scene, and she's, setting the stage that, she has the upper hand in it. It's like, I can, make you do what I want you to do, or I can influence your thoughts because, I've got the power.
She does have power, and her power is interesting. I guess I want to ask, what do you make of her body? What do you
I
make
was
of...
just
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to point that out. The first thing I thought of when I looked at this page was mannerist art, which focused on elongated limbs and bodies, and it broke away from the Renaissance, Northern Renaissance representation of bodies, and it just seemed to me that there's something very liberating about the fact that this is not a cosmetic or artificial body. These are real bodies.
Right.
And
It's not.
to
Yeah.
me,
It's
to,
not.
yeah, to
Yeah.
me,
It's
the
not.
Bigfoot.
I'm sorry. It's not a body that is, like the typical, cute little body. It's like a real female's body, or with the lumps and bumps and everything, like you
Yeah.
said.
And I was just going to add that I think that is achieved through what was the term for it? Bigfoot technique, which uses very few but very boldly and strikingly drawn lines. I like that. I find that liberating. I mean, I can see myself using this in a gender studies classroom.
So lumps and bumps, I like that phrase, because when you look at Lil in the first panel, she has some lumps and bumps. She's a human being. She's not Wonder Woman designed by a psychologist who believes he knows what women really are like, right? And so he designs Wonder Woman.
It humanizes and de-objectifies.
And yet, it's pretty sexy. You know, it's pretty sexy still. It's human, and it's pretty sexy. And if you get the comic, and I promise you all I'll send you copies because you've been great students, turn the page after this page, and it gets really sexy.
I'm sure.
Oh.
Well, in the last panel, it looks like it's on its way.
It does look like it's on its way. So I want to sum up a little bit, because I think that this excerpt, we're not going to get to Saga, I'm sorry.
Aww.
But I know. Alex, we'll have to do this again.
Can we just get off air after this and do it?
What?
Can we get off air after this and do it?
I gotta go to work, folks.
Damn it.
But I want to sum up here. What we have talked about is the power of storytelling. And in my view, the power of storytelling has to do with not just being a creator, but also being a reader and being someone who navigates through stories and who can take them up. When I read Pretty Deadly, I think that's what these three women are giving us. They're giving us a way in to a traditional story, but they're giving us a way into that traditional Western story that is different and allows us to recognize and embody different features of human beings. In that, I see great strength for comic books. Because comic books, they've given us stereotyped human beings for nigh on 80 years now. Muscle-bound giants and tiny-waisted women with big breasts. And these are the stereotypes of American culture. And look, Chris Evans and Hemsworth, they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous boys, and it's delightful to watch them. But their looks do not fit us all. Their looks do not fit us all, because humanity has vast differences. So what excites me about this, is that it allows us to imagine heroes who are attractive, who are sexual, who are complicated, and nevertheless are not fitting a traditional superhero mold. So I would say that in comics right now, we are on the verge of a new golden age, a golden age in which women and people who are not necessarily blonde, blue-eyed, and white-skinned can begin to express the stories, tell the stories, and let their readers read the stories of difference. And that, to me, has tremendous power, because if comics are part of American mainstream culture, we are now coming to a turn where we might change the images they give us. And that will allow us all to be readers of readers of our own agency to discover a new kind of identity within comics. So, I'm going to leave it at that. I want to thank each of you. Thank you so much, Alex, Dean, P,
Thank you.
Azia. It's been wonderful meeting you. I would write you each my thanks. I'm so pleased that you're in this course. It's great. Go read
Thank you for
Saga.
organizing this.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.